I'm Dana, and I quite often talk about the importance of unmasking for autistic people and how much better and nicer and just generally more comfortable life can be once you start to unmask more and be your more genuine self and all of that. But at the same time, I know from my own experience that it's incredibly difficult to unmask. I'm 26. I found out when I was 21 that I didn't find out, but I was officially diagnosed as autistic at 21ish, and had sort of been on the path for a few years of being I know that I'm autistic, but I don't have a proper diagnosis, so I don't want to jump in and just say that I am, even though self-diagnosis is entirely valid. I was just very anxious for doing that. So I've had a long time of knowing I was autistic and sort of trying to figure myself out. And a lot of it has been spent trying to unmask and trying to figure out how to unmask. And it's hard. It's real hard. And it's one of those things that it's difficult to find true advice on. And when you do find advice on it, it's very easy to be I don't get what's being said here. I don't understand what the advice is. I don't know how to follow through on this advice. So I wanted to do my own little video where I think it's layman's terms, I think that might be the phrase for it, just put across in very simple language that I think is easy to understand for people, how I've been on the journey of unmasking, because I definitely don't think that I am an unmasked autistic, but I definitely have more points in life where I am able to be an unmasked autistic person, and it's very nice, and I'd like to share that with other people. So getting straight into it, the big one for me was meeting other people who are unmasked autistics. And I know meeting people is always the worst and most annoying advice, but I don't think it necessarily has to be in real life. I think it can be done online. I think you can have online friends who are unmasked if you video call them, we're not doing phone calls, even in messages, just being around other unmasked people who understand their needs, who understand their traits, who accommodate to themselves and don't judge themselves and think negatively of themselves on their autistic traits. It's incredible and it's very important. And for me, I think that a lot of my masking is trying to act like the other people do, act like normal people do. And a lot of the struggle with unmasking for me is being very I don't know how I act as an autistic person. I don't know how autistic people act outside of the stereotypes that I know I don't fit. So when I'm looking for autistic behaviour that will feel natural for me to do, it's easiest to see it in other people that are like me, my friends, people I actively like being around and can relate to. Seeing them be their unmasked selves and seeing them have autistic traits and seeing them stim and seeing it echolalia and doing little vocal stims back and forth and things like that is so freeing and really truly help you to unmask. You definitely can do that stuff on your own. There's no shame in that. I actively advise you to do it on your own as well. I do that stuff on my own all the time, and it definitely makes me feel better. It helps me to understand what helps me as an autistic person and everything. But I wouldn't have known to do a lot of things by myself and known that a lot of things feel comfortable and natural to me as an autistic person had I not seen other autistic people that are similar to me do them first. And I think that also has the added benefit of I do not judge my friends for anything, I was gonna say as long as they're being nice people, but it's a case of my friends I know are good people, so I just don't judge them for anything. If something comes across with bad intentions, I just assume that there were good intentions and it's gone wrong or whatever, I don't judge my friends for anything really. So where I might feel a bit silly for stimming or for having to straight up just be I don't understand what's being said right now, I don't get the joke, I don't get the sarcasm, what's somebody explain please, things like that, whereas I would have felt really silly for them and I might feel I'm putting it on, I might just generally feel uncomfortable doing something that's autistic, I feel I'll be judged for it. It gives me a lot of icky negative feelings in a lot of situations. So to see my friends do the things that I judge myself for and feel bad about myself for and not feel anything negative or judgmental towards them is incredibly useful. Not to make it sound my friends are just there to make me feel better about myself and be useful to me, but there's the side of they're my friend now. I have an immense joy that they're able to unmask around me and that they can behave like that, and I love it for them, I really like it. But it is also that security and comfort for me of oh, I can do that too, and if I'm not judging them, I don't need to judge myself, and if I'm not judging them, they're not going to judge me if I do it, and it's all very nice and it all feels very comforting, and that's by far been the easiest and best way to unmask for me. The next thing I think is perhaps the most vital of all, though, which is I started to prioritise how I feel. You know, and this is a big struggle. I'm very much a people pleaser. I very much want other people to be comfortable, want other people to be happy, and feel very bad asking for any sort of help. Often feel like I'm a burden for asking for any sort of accommodation, the like. Like, it is very difficult. But the more that I've prioritised how I feel, the better of a time I have in life. Like, whereas in the past, I would often just feel lucky to be hanging out with people, so I'm not going to do or say anything that make me seem difficult or whatever. I've started to be like, yeah, the sun's in my eyes and I'm too hot. I want to sit in the shade. Is anyone coming with me? Because I'm doing that. You know? Or just being like, I need you all to move so I can sit over here where the sun's like my eyes. Things like that. Things where it's like, obviously no one wants to sit with the sun in their eyes, but I'm also aware that I'm not in the position of like where a neurotypical would say it's in their eyes. I'm aware it's not that bright and I'm just having a sensory issue. And previously, I'd have been like, well, I'm just having a sensory issue and it's my sensory issue to deal with. So I'm not going to make people move. I'm not going to move myself. I'm going to just deal with it and mask it and pretend everything's fine when it's not. And I'm not doing it anymore. If I'm having a sensory issue, I'm uncomfortable. I'm removing myself from the situation. I'm removing the thing that's giving me the sensory issue, you know? I don't need to just deal with it. And it's been so many things like that where it's just, I don't want to do that thing. I don't want to do that. I feel better if we do this. And you know, I do think that it's kind of difficult still to find like the balance, because I don't want to put my friends out. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to boss people around and like pull the autism card when it's unnecessary, you know? But I'm also just not going to put myself in positions I'm uncomfortable in and where I have to heavily mask, because it's not worth it for me. It's not good and it's not fun and I'm not doing it. I'm prioritising my needs. Now, tying in more so with my first point is that I educated myself about what autism is and what it means to be autistic. You know, there's lots of things that I thought were just sort of my own quirks and my own personality flaws and my own just things to work on. And there's plenty of things that are still things to work on, but there's also some things that I've learned are part of being autistic, and they're not so much to work on, so much as accommodate to and cater to and work around, because it's part of being autistic and it's not going to go away. But I would have continued to work on them and like essentially try to cure myself of autistic traits had I not educated myself on what it means to be autistic. Like I say, like the mask and like masking for me is very much trying to pretend to be a neurotypical. And a lot of unmasking is having to learn how to be autistic. That's why I had like the whole little series that I think I'm going to bring back at some point. And if you don't know what it is to be autistic and if you don't know anything about autism, it feels like you're just scrambling around in the dark grabbing at things, because you're not masking to be a neurotypical anymore because you know you're autistic. But what is it to not be neurotypical? That's what we've been striving to. That's what we've been trying to be. What do you go to if you haven't educated? You know, what do you turn to if you've not been educated and you don't know what it means to be an autistic person? It's tough, and you've got to educate yourself, I think, to be able to unmask. You know? Like, it's a very self-explanatory point. I thought I was going to have more to say, I won't lie. So we're going to read my notes and move on to the next one, which was recognising and accepting my traits. Obviously, I could have done some sort of segue there. That does tie in with my last point. I don't know if it really is what people would refer to as soul searching, but I don't really know what most of those terms are meant to mean anyway. So I feel like I did a lot of soul searching to really try and separate what parts of my personality are purely my personality and what parts are also because I'm autistic. Like, it's one of those things where they're closely tied together, but they are also different, but they're also the same, because I'm an autistic person, but also like I'm not just an autistic person, you know, but I am, but I'm not. There's a lot more things that I let myself just not have to worry about now, because I know that is part of being autistic, and I'm just like, well, I'm not going to be able to change it. There's no point getting deep into it and damaging myself and making myself feel awful about it when that's a part of being autistic. And I think that there's also some degree of working those autistic traits into your personality and like sort of becoming an amalgamation of the two, because we are all the people that we are and have our own personalities and are unique little people. But then there's also the fact that we're autistic, and that means that like there's some things that just, although they are a part of us, it's part of autism too. I hope you get what I mean with that. It's such an overly long explanation that I didn't need to do, I don't think. I'm not sure. Like, for those of us that are late diagnosed, one of the first things that you do is start unpacking and being like, which things here are autistic traits, like which parts of me are the autism. So I think that it's very easy to do that part, but I think that the thing that comes with that a lot of us sort of skip over and don't do, is accepting those traits as a part of who we are, and accepting that as much as they may be autistic traits, they are also our personality traits, and they're like inherent to the people that we are. And it's tough. Like, accepting anything is tough, and I don't know how you're meant to do it, if that makes sense. Like, it's something I just sort of work on and do in my own time, and I journal, and I do this and I do that, and I think about things, and then eventually I've accepted it and processed it. I don't know how you do that, but it's helpful when you do. And my final one is, every single point I've been like, this is vital, haven't I? But I think that this is the biggest one, and I think that this is the thing that me and everyone else could do with learning in like every degree of life, and it's, I just stopped caring as much, you know? Like, as I think is like a sort of common autistic experience, I've had friendship group after friendship group. I've had, you know, lots and lots of people come into my life and have a very close relationship, have a very close bond, and then have them just leave again. And after it happens so many times, it gets to a point of just like, if they're not gonna stick around for who I actually am, I don't want them to stick around. I don't want more people where I have to put on this whole like song and show and dance and be something that I'm not, and try to be better than I am and different than how I am and be more like them and be more like this. Like, I just don't care enough to put myself through that for people anymore. And it was as soon as I stopped caring enough and was like, I'm not doing this again. I hate the positions that I've been put into in life by like trying to be the right person for people and trying to be this and trying to be that and just masking for people constantly. I got so sick and tired of, and it was the moment that I was like, I'm not doing it and I don't care, and people can just fucking hate me if they hate me, like whatever. It was right when I got to that point that I actually met people that I don't have to mask around, and that I can be a little bit weird and a little bit autistic and myself and my normal actual just be Dana, you know? It was right then that I met those people and can unmask around them and can have them unmask around me, and it's really nice, you know. And I don't think it's one of those things, like I know people love bringing it up with dating as well, when they're like, oh well, it's as soon as you stop looking for the one that you'll find them. I got lucky with the timing. Like, I don't think it was like all that, but I also don't know if I would have like gotten as close to them and like had the times that I'm having if it weren't that I was at a point where I was just like, this is me, guys, this is like the most true and genuine version of myself I've been to date. Still masking going on, still not always perfect, still sometimes I'm a bit weird in the way of not being myself versus weird in the way that I am when I am myself, you know? Like, I'm not perfect, I'm not unmasked, I'm not like the unmasked autistic person at all. I still struggle with it, and I still have times when I'm like, oh shit, like I masked really hard here, or I masked at this, and I don't behave in the way that I want to and in the way that is my true authentic self. But I'm not so hard on myself for it. And overall, I think that if I hadn't started unmasking and doing this kind of stuff, my life would just be horrible. My life would just be a total shit show. I wouldn't have. If you know my past, I'd still be there. I'd still be doing all the shit that I was doing and be the person that I was then, you know? It's a whole time. It's a whole time. But we're getting to the end of the video, because that was my last point. My last point was that I just stopped caring so much. And I mean that very specifically about how people will perceive me as an autistic person, if people will think I'm weird, that kind of thing, like personality-wise when it comes to masking. I've definitely not nailed not caring when it comes to like the way that I look, the way that I'm perceived, like there's lots of things that I still very, very much worry about and care about way more than I should. But specifically when it comes to being seen as like an autistic person, an unmasked autistic person, being seen as weird, I'm like, it's because I am. It's because I am. That's me, guys. You're having a correct perception. So yeah, that's the video. If you've got any tips for unmasking, or any like even just like nice little success stories, nice times that you've had, anything to do with unmasking, I would love to hear about down in the comments. Some of my videos have been a little bit comment-like lately, guys. And I don't want to press you into commenting, because I want it to be a fun time, you know? I want you to comment because you have something to say, or you don't have to like have something to say, but I want you to comment because you want to, you know? I don't know why I'm making this intro so long and rambling so much. I just really enjoy getting comments, and I love it when you guys comment. So if you want to, please do leave a comment. most importantly, if you want to see more content from me, I post on Thursdays and Sundays, so please do subscribe, do like the video. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter too if you want to see more of me. I post lots of TikTok videos, lots of them. And if you like my content enough to want to monetarily contribute towards this channel staying, I don't know who I am when I do this monetized bit, because I don't like fucking asking for money, and I suddenly become these like Twitch CEO gamer bros that are like, if you want to contribute to the continuation of my content creation, I've got a Patreon, you can become a YouTube member, and I've also got a Ko-fi, and all of this stuff will be linked in the little bottom bar down below the video. If you want to donate any money towards me, or like become a Patreon or whatever, it'd be super fucking cool. It's very fucking sick. I love when people do that and you get a few little perks. But there's no pressure and you don't have to, and I feel very awkward asking. But it's there if you want to. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year. And I'll see you again in a couple of days.